All right, well, on the show this week, Clive and Rob Johnson out of Foundry 42 UK. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, Jared. How are you?
I'm okay, a little under the weather and whatnot. We had a subscriber tour on Wednesday, and one of them brought plague, but I'm okay.
Oh, no.
Somebody was like, your Dayquil is in the shot, and I'm like, okay, I'll move it. I'll hide it over here. And I'm like, maybe if I leave it in the shot, I'll get a free sponsorship. But okay. Performance and optimization. Obviously, this is a topic that's very close to backers' hearts. Star Citizen is in a unique position because we are running a live game environment in the middle of our development. You know, there are lots of terms in the gaming community, early access, stuff like that. We're sort of like that. We're not quite like a PUBG and whatnot. We are very, very, very early on. I mean, we started our live environment back when we had only the Arena Commander module. I mean, we are building this game out live in front of our community, and that brings a lot of challenges with it. One of the things I think it was. I can't remember who said it now, but usually optimization happens towards the end of the process, and because we're running this live environment, because we want people to be able to accurately test and stuff, we have to sort of change the paradigm a bit and optimize our performance live during development, and that's what our ATV was focused on yesterday. If you haven't seen it, that's available up on YouTube, and at the end of the show I highly recommend you go and check it out. But on the show today we've got Rob and Clive Johnson, no relation, and I'm going to keep hammering that Die Hard joke because I love it. I'm sorry, guys. Let's just take a few moments now and introduce yourselves to everybody who's watching. Tell them who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
I'm Rob Johnson, lead gameplay programmer here at Foundry 42 Wilmslow.
I'm Clive Johnson, lead network programmer, also here at Foundry 42 Wilmslow.
No relation.
No relation.
Thank you. Die Hard, man. So what does a lead programmer do, Rob?
All sorts, really. Primarily, I'm in charge of managing a team of gameplay engineers. I also work with production on sort of scheduling the work that the team has to do. Do a lot of bug fixing, trying to look at critical issues as they come down, things that might be stopping us pushing to Ivacati, for example. They often get put on the leads plates first for us to assess and then assign out as needed. Generally, you know, a day in the office is just a busy mix of emails, Skype, Jiras, bug fixing, occasionally a little bit of feature work, maybe a few meetings. So it's really just a little bit of everything, but really good fun.
You're really selling that glamorous video game development lifestyle there, Rob. And Clive, what does a lead network engineer do?
Pretty much the same thing. The kind of the other part of it is the dealing with dealing is the wrong word, talking to the other leads and coming up with solutions for the kind of problems that we face that's going to work for everybody. Trying to make sure that everything's tasked up in Jira, and production are aware of what we need and when we need it by, so that we can work out our dependencies.
Mm-hmm. Now, if this is your first time watching RTV, we are live. Congratulations. Hello. For those of you who are here live. If you're watching on YouTube after the fact, thanks for watching. We do take questions live in two places. You can submit your questions either on Twitch chat, where we're broadcasting on twitch.tv/StarCitizen. You can preface your question with the word question in capital letters surrounded by brackets. That helps us pull it out. You can also submit questions live on Spectrum, which is our own communication platform available on robertspaceindustries.com. In addition to the live chat, we also put up a thread last night once ATV went live, collecting questions for folks that couldn't be here live. The other thing that does is it lets people vote on which questions they want to see answered. So we do have some questions from that chat, from that thread, that we're going to get to while folks in the live chat are coming up with what they want to ask. The first question from that thread for you, is the time and effort required to come up with temporary solutions that allow us backers to play each patch at this early stage interfering with the development of long-term solutions the game needs? That's a pretty good question.
I think for me, interfering's maybe a bit of a strong word there. I'd say a lot of game development, you've got kind of times at which you've got sort of, you might need a short-term solution, medium-term solution, long-term solution. Obviously, with a game like this, we're always aiming to try and get the best long-term solutions in, work towards doing things properly. We're not a game where we can really take shortcuts. We have to look at what is going to work beyond the next patch. But with us releasing every few months, then to get a build release ready, we are at times going to have to look at addressing issues in certain ways that may not be relevant in a year or two's time. So for me, it's kind of just part and parcel of what we do. It's not new to us as engineers, and even if we weren't doing the patches every few months and releasing them to the public, we still need sort of shorter term solutions at times to, for example, allow design and other departments to actually get on with their work. You don't just sort of start with very close to finished product in a cycle of game development. There's a lot of prototyping and trying stuff out and sort of changing things around a little bit until you come up with a good mix of things that actually works well. So for me, it's just part and parcel of what we have to do.
Yeah, I think that affects just about every aspect of Star Citizen's development, not just performance and optimization. We are always building the first iteration of something, and then wrapping it up in a form that can actually go out to people, and then building the next iteration, building the next iteration. Like with 3.1, we're putting out the first version of our character customizer. It is not the fully featured version that we want with the DNA morphing and everything, but it is part and parcel of how we've chosen to develop Star Citizen, which is live and out in front of everybody. You're constantly working towards a long-term goal, but you're also working towards these short-term goals and having to package everything up in as nice a bow as you can to give to people every couple months. All right, next question from the thread: what's the difference between SV culling in 3.1 and network bind culling? SV culling being serialized variable culling, I imagine.
Yes. Okay, so bind culling will be the entities that are far away from you are not present on clients at all. So they won't be taking any memory, they won't be taking any CPU load. Serialized variable culling, on the other hand, is that we just stop sending the network updates for those entities that are far away, so far away on your client that you can't actually see them. So the entities are still there, they're still present in memory, and they don't require any CPU updates because they're not getting network updates. So the natural state of entities on the client, or most entities on the client, will be, if they're not getting any network updates from the server, they'll go to sleep and wait for the next network update and decide what they need to do. So I hope that explains the difference.
Gotcha. All right, from the live chat, how long have some performance increasing features fixes been in development? Did we start optimizing with 3.0, or have we been working on these things for longer than just the 3.0 branch?
The first time we started discussing network optimizations was the day I joined the company about 3 years ago, and we've been working on it steadily ever since, trying to unravel the pieces bit by bit so that we can make these changes.
We're getting there, aren't we?
Yeah, slowly.
There's a lot of the work involved. Say, for example, Clive putting in the new network back end, and then game code taking Clive's API and using that in the game code to replace some of the older stuff that we originally took when we got the engine. So a lot of the time it can just take sort of several months sometimes to convert over what are maybe like literally sort of hundreds of pieces of code that we've got to sort of make sure that they still work. and make sure that they then use the new code, which can then be more optimal because Clive's done such a good job on it.
So it's all me.
I got a question for you, Clive. This was from me. It's not from the chat. Backers have taken to referring to all performance-based issues as netcode issues. How crazy does that drive you?
Absolutely livid.
That's why he's got no hair.
Yes, yeah. I had long hair when I joined the company. Not anymore.
Yeah, he's got pictures to prove it as well.
Can we help? What can we say to help dispel that? Just that. I mean, obviously, we all know that there are performance issues. We see the same frame rate that our backers see when they play and whatever. What can we say now to kind of educate folks that this isn't, that what you're seeing is not just a blanket netcode issue?
Okay, so saying that there's performance issues in multiplayer is fine. To then pin it on a particular part of code and say, well, because it doesn't happen in single player, all the code that you can see running in single player must be fine, is a bit of a leap, because basically there's sheer different quantities of entities that we're dealing with between single player and multiplayer. So you'll have, I'm not entirely sure how many entities we've got per player, but say 20 odd entities per player for each client that joins, and then they'll spawn a ship that could be somewhere between 100 to, I think some of them will get them to like 5,000 entities, and then they'll go and fill those with cargo, which is more entities, and they'll fly off and they'll interact with pirates and task givers, which are more entities that get spawned. There'll be debris pieces flying off. So yeah, the number of entities grows very rapidly with the number of clients, and that's what causes the performance low. So if people want to call that netcode, then that's fine, but it's not the networking specifically, it's the networking and the game code and the physics and rendering
graphics and everything. Yeah. It's really just every module and every engineering department really kind of has to take a responsibility for their own performance that they achieve in game. I mean, when we've been profiling this stuff, you tend to find that sort of almost no engineering department can ignore performance. We get the UI guys, the AI guys as well, the audio guys. There's it really is sort of shared across the board, and it might be that say UI do really great optimization, and then all of a sudden the next biggest hitter on the list is the audio guys, and then it might be the graphics guys. It's just and from time to time, unfortunately, sort of things can unexpectedly crop up, and all of a sudden we have to jump on those, fix that, and then get back to bringing the average frame time down, improving things.
I think as well there's kind of been a bit of miscommunication in that for a while we've admitted that the bottleneck on the server was the networking code, and I think that's kind of been misunderstood a little bit, that it was the bottleneck everywhere. So maybe that's partly responsible. Yeah,
it's one of the reasons why we had talked about we had wanted to have you on happy hour at the beginning of this year and whatnot. But as I delved deeper into everything that was going on, we realized that this is far more than just netcode and networking and stuff like that. We wanted to do a much more robust feature, and that's what folks have hopefully seen on ATV yesterday. That performance and optimization is a task that affects almost every discipline in Star Citizen. So it will be all teams working in conjunction to bring Star Citizen to the 60 frame heaven that we're all aspiring to.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing to add as well, of course, it's not just us engineers. If a designer wants to drop 2 billion entities in a level, then performance isn't going to be great. If an artist wants to model an apple out of like 1 trillion polys, place it on a table on an outpost, then again, it's shared company responsibility, really.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember who it was right now, but somebody once told me that the original freelancer model, the one that had all those crazy rivets, because the rivets were created incredibly poorly, to be honest, that the freelancer had a larger memory footprint than the Idris. And that's definitely not network related. That's just the freelancer. It's one of the reasons we go back and we revisit these ships, not just because we want to change them for gameplay purposes, but sometimes we just need to seriously optimize the way they were built. I mean, we've gotten much better at building these ships as time has gone by. So yeah. All right, next question from the Spectrum thread. What network enhancements beyond what is listed for 3.4 are needed before we can have two systems connected by a jump point?
So beyond 3.4. So 3.4, we've got on the roadmap server migration. So for two systems, they're always going to work. Well, the plan is for them to work like separate instances. So the servers for one system and the servers for another system will be completely disjoint and won't communicate at all. We're thinking maybe, it's not decided yet, that we could use the server migration technology to help provide a seamless transition via the jump points from system to system.
Right.
So potentially what we could do is someone wants to jump from one system to another, their ship gets put into a server in its own little bubble, and that server then breaks off from the mesh in one system and then is moved over to a mesh in the other system and is connected in. One of the difficulties we'll have to try and solve if we do that is the reason we won't mix systems together, won't connect servers from different systems together, is that each system has its own coordinate system, with the star being at the center 0, 0, 0. So we have to move from wherever you jumped from, say, the Stanton system to whichever destination system you're going to. Move the ship, that server bubble across space without colliding with anything else that's in either of the systems. So it's a little tricky, but yeah, we're thinking about it.
Right.
We have to build the server migration tech, server meshing tech first, and then we'll see if we can utilize it that way.
Fair enough. It's still the question was still a bit far out there.
Yeah.
As far as time-wise. So. All right, another question from the live chat. What upcoming optimization are you personally most looking forward to, and why?
Do you want to?
For me, I think one of the biggest things this year for us is object container streaming. I mean, that's something we're working towards in 3.3. It kind of goes hand in hand really with like some of our other new entity component work that we've been doing. So the entity component update scheduler. Really, with object container streaming, you should get optimizations on load times, for example, because you'll be coming into the PU only needing to load in the immediate area around you to begin with. So from our point of view, as devs, we're very much looking forward to being able to get in the PU, fix some bugs in like an absolute fraction of the time it takes us to load into the PU right now. So, it's not just going to be a benefit for you guys playing the game. It's going to be something that that is great for us every day, work-wise. But to do that, there's a lot of talented guys on the engine side, sort of working at the back end for that. But also, sort of game code-wise, we're again have to go through lots of old game objects, convert over that code to our new entity component system. We have to make the various classes thread safe, to avoid crashes. It's sort of that those new classes then should in theory be ready to put on. Everything should be ready to go on the batch updater, spread the load across multiple cores, allow the game to scale a lot better. So really, it's kind of hard to pin down one specific optimization when we have kind of several all being worked towards at the same time. We have things batch updating now. We have a lot of these classes that are now thread safe. We have a lot of stuff that's being converted over. There's just a couple more releases probably until we're quite there. So that stuff is something I'm very much looking forward to, because a lot of my job for the last 3 or 4 years has been getting rid of a load of old code and putting in this nice new shiny stuff. So we dream of the day where we just have this nice shiny code base that's our own, and we're not fixing crashes and something that got added years ago, and we can just enjoy the new code. That's where we want to get to.
Yeah. It's kind of like being asked to pick a favorite child.
No comment.
My parents had no trouble with that. Eric. All right. While you were talking, Rob, one of the questions came in that says, can we please dummy explain, that's their words, can we please dummy explain what object container streaming really is?
Okay. Well, an object container in its simplest form, you could maybe just think of it as actually kind of like a level, without a few bits of stuff that's kind of specific to it actually being a level, if you like, because most of what a level is it's just a list of objects. So in the CryEngine, Lumberyard, you're looking mostly at entities and brushes.
There'd be large scale pieces, kind of like ships and space stations, and planets. They're all object containers.
So that's like the data is like an XML like file format, which just is sort of containing a list of things. And then so if that's an object container, the idea is you sort of load into the map, you load one set of objects that's around you. You spawn a ship. The ship itself can be an object container. It's just a set of objects. Hop in that ship, fly across the galaxy. You no longer need the object container that you spawned in the first place, say Port Olisar, so you can remove those entities. So really, when we say like object containers, it is kind of just that. It's a container with some objects in, and the way we've got the game set up, we can spawn those in dynamically, remove them dynamically, and that's really where that's really the sort of streaming process, put as simply as I can.
Gotcha. So it's like when you load into Port Olisar, it doesn't have to load up the Starfare that's sitting on Levski, on the surface of Levski, into your memory, because you can't see it, you can't interact with it right now. There's no reason for it to send that data to you and for it to load into your memory. It basically it's a Starfare, a Reclaimer, an entire base. They're all various object containers of different sizes and scopes. And this is just the system that determines, all right, we do need to send this to you, we don't need to send this to you, and when and where that happens. Okay, from the thread there, are massive fleet battles still feasible?
Yes.
All right, moving on.
I think so. Yeah. That was easy.
Do you have any elaboration? I was just joking about the...
Yeah, okay. One of the things you've got to bear in mind is that for 3.0, the servers were running on 16 cores. So a thread runs one thread per core. So we had 16 threads available to the server. The servers that Amazon have available to us have up to 72 cores. So obviously there's a lot more cores, there's a lot more scope for us to expand and run more things in parallel. With the parallel, the changes that we made to make the network code run more in parallel, it's starting to look, we could pretty much scale up the numbers quite well. It's relies a lot, not just on the network code though, it relies on, as Rob was saying earlier, it's the mix of everyone, of the physics code and the gameplay code, and everything working together so that we can fill out those cores as optimally as possible. I do believe that we've got the systems coming online that will allow us to do that, such as the entity, I always get stuck on this name, the entity component update scheduler. We do have the best names in engineering. They are catchy. So it's just a question of leveraging those to the best of our ability. And then, yes, I think massive space battles will be a reality.
Yeah, I mean, you can see what we're trying to do all the time. We're really just trying to push things as much as we possibly can, keep raising the bar. Like Clive says, we've got the plans in place. It's really just now we've just got to continue implementing things the way we've been doing it. We'll keep on raising the player counts, allowing more ships into the PU, and so hopefully we'll reach a point where people consider the amount we've got to be massive. So yeah, we think it's feasible. We're going to keep going towards it.
Another question from the live chat here. Why is serialized variables range culling less problematic than network bind culling? Because to me, it sounds very similar to them.
Yeah, it is very similar. The only difference being that with serialized variable culling, the entities themselves are kept around on the clients. With bind culling, the binding part is effectively it's creating the entity on the client, connecting it to the network, that's the bind part, and letting the server know that this entity is available to talk to on the client. So by keeping the entity around, we solve that problem. We don't have to get rid of the entity itself, which means that then the data for that entity is loaded in on the client. So what you could have is a situation where you've got a ship, you're a port also, you're watching a ship quantum travel away. So if with bind culling, that ship would be unloaded, you'd potentially lose all the data files, and then if it quantum traveled back, you'd have to load those data files in again and respawn that entity on your client, and that will cause a loading stall at the moment. So the reason that we haven't gone with bind culling for 3.1 is because we don't want players to experience additional loading stalls beyond what they already do. The reason it was on the 3.1 roadmap was because we thought, what the hey, we'll give it a try. We'll see how bad it actually is. But in the process of working towards 3.1, priorities have changed a bit, and it was always a gamble, as I say, whether bind culling was actually going to improve things or make things worse. So we decided that we'd shift focus, make sure that serialized variable culling was in and working, and then assist with the other optimizations that are being done.
Yeah, I mean, like from the game code perspective as well, what you always tend to have in engineering is you can't help but have certain assumptions as to the way things are kind of going to, the way things work, and if all of a sudden we've got entities that were once there, albeit like the other side of the universe, and now they're not, then you're gonna by the nature of the fact that we have like so many sort of tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, millions of lines of game code, there's going to be places where people have assumed once an entity exists, it's there. It's not being sort of pulled in and out depending on whereabouts you are in the server. So yeah, there's
going to be fix-up time that we're going to have to work our way through. Yeah.
All right. Next question says, will server meshing be used to attempt a single worldwide server shard, or is ping the unbreakable barrier?
Well, ping's definitely an unbreakable barrier. We are planning on attempting a single shard, but ping's definitely going to be the big obstacle that we're going to have to face. So a number that I've kind of got in mind is I think it's Australia to parts of the US is something like typically like a 200 millisecond ping. From EU to US, something around 100 milliseconds or so. So that they're not insignificant latencies. So potentially what we could do is try and find a server that's geographically in the middle of the players who are interacting at that point, and try and locate all the players who are interacting. So all the players who are in Port Olisar would be on the same server, and the same server would be in the geographic middle somewhere of all the players who are at Port Olisar at that point in time, and try and optimize the ping that way for as many people as possible. What we could do as well is we could kind of layer the servers in a sense. So everyone connects to their regional server, or servers closest to them in their regional data center, and then those servers then communicate with one that's geographically centered around the others that are connecting in. So you can try and minimize the ping that way. Some of it's going to come down to trying to find techniques to hide the latency as much as possible. It really depends on the gameplay situation. It's obviously it's mostly going to affect fast combat. Yeah, it's going to be challenging. I don't have any definite answers about how we're going to tackle all that, but we've got to build the tech first so that we can attempt to try and find solutions to those problems. The other thing to say is that probably Arena Commander and Star Marine, it's not fully decided yet, but they'll probably always be region based. So you'll always be connecting to your local server for those games. So they should always have nice, sharp, low pings.
Fair enough. Next question actually came in both the thread and the live chat. Is bind culling of distant objects problematic for implementing optical magnification equipment like the Endeavour's telescope arrays?
Yes, it's going to be a bit awkward. So the way we kind of call things is not just on a distance basis. It's kind of a observed size. So if you imagine holding your arm out in front of you, your thumb up, and you kind of anything that appears bigger than your thumbnail to you is something that we'd want to keep in. Anything that's smaller than the size of your thumbnail, it would be something that would get culled. So adding a telescope on obviously means that your field of view gets narrower when you're looking through a telescope, so everything appears much more magnified. So that means that you can see much smaller objects, so that we have to keep in things that are much further away. It's going to extend the ranges a lot. It could be a bit of a problem. I'm sure it'll be fine, but it's something that I'd like the game designers to rein in, please.
Yeah, I think there's sort of similar kind of issues with comms as well, because obviously, you know, if you're talking to like multiple people in multiple locations, you know, all of a sudden it's like the challenge is to sort of figure out how we can accommodate that situation without taking the load of every location that we want to show some detail in. It's that is one of probably the most challenging gameplay aspects we have to deal with.
Yep. Well, luckily we've got some time ahead of us to work on that stuff. Will performance and optimizations help with older PCs so people won't have to spend more out of pocket to be up to par?
Yes. We'd like to sort of make it clear as we're on that all the optimizations we're doing code-wise, they're not specific to any particular machine specs. The code doesn't really care whether it's high-end or low-end machine that it's going on. If we're putting optimizations in that, we found something, we don't need to update this object in this situation, or we cut down like amounts of sort of expensive code that we call in. Those kind of fixes will apply to both low end and high end. So I think that'll it's probably like hard to judge exactly how much on each on like a high end versus a low end you save, but the code is fixed for both, so you should see a saving in both. The aim is to optimize across the board.
That kind of applies for servers as well, because obviously they're super high-end PCs, if you want to think of them that way. So any optimizations we do will benefit the servers as well as clients.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Triple win.
From the live chat here, some players are getting massive CPU spikes in the PU. What optimizations do you think will really impact client CPU load?
Well, I think the thing we need to do is diagnose exactly why those spikes are occurring. Without that information, you can't really
tell what the optimization is going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to find the problems and fix them. We've got plans in place to do that though. So there'll be there's been new telemetry systems added recently. It was talked about around the verse by Balti in Frankfurt. So he's been putting stuff in that will do things like automatically capture performance telemetry when the frame rate dips below a certain threshold. So whether it's in our internal play tests or potentially we have plans to sort of take telemetry from people from backers playing the game on live as well. So basically we should be able to get telemetry for these drops in performance, and then we can analyze it and say, it might be, it's the game code, it's the physics, it's network. Until we've really just got a kit. It's a bit like catching fish. We just need to cast the line out, and hopefully, sort of, if there are any whoppers out there, then we're just hoping to reel them in sooner rather than later, get them fixed up. But we've got much better systems in place for 3.1 to catch those things. And also those new telemetry frameworks, the idea with them as well is to constantly pull in data as well. So it's not just about the frame rate drops; it's about kind of like the baseline performance as well. So we should have much more accessible ways for your average engineer in the company to look at the performance of the game, go, these 10 functions are the slowest in the game. Oh look, one of them something that I know about, I can fix that. So it'll be a lot more transparent as to where the issues are, and then that should lead to them being fixed up a lot faster. So we're kind of hopeful that the tools we're getting in place are much better. It is a gradual process. It's some days you can get some good wins. Other days you're sort of scratching around and you feel like you go to places where you'd love to be able to optimize it, but it's much more tricky. So I kind of going off on a bit of a tangent there, but that's yeah.
It's all right.
We've got plans to get these frame rate drops and get them sorted as soon as possible.
Yeah, I got a suggestion for you. I know how to free up a bunch of CPU space. Just turn off physics. We don't need physics. Just turn off physics. Free up a whole bunch of CPU. That's a free one from me to you, Rob.
We can turn off rendering as well. I like that.
Have you guys started work on optimizing any part of Squadron 42 yet? Or are you still figuring out the best practices for that now to apply to Squadron 42 later?
Well, the way we build in the game, Star Citizen and Squadron 42, we're sharing the code base. So really a lot of the optimizations we're applying already will benefit Squadron 42. Anything that's sort of, maybe it's like sort of range-based optimizations, visibility-based optimizations, i.e. what can you sort of turn off at range, or when you can't see it. Also putting in systems to make it easier to sort of time slice updates, so you might only need to update certain objects once every sort of second as opposed to 60 times a second, or in some cases you might only need to update things sort of once every 5 minutes. Really those kind of systems that we're putting in will apply to both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. The goals that Chris wants us to move towards sort of more systems that kind of what we call LOD updates, where LOD is level of detail. So the idea might be you can have a AI character loaded in memory sort of very far away, but for the client they don't need to run such a detailed update function for him in that situation, as opposed to when they get closer. There will be certain optimizations that are specific to Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, like for example the network optimizations, where we'll just apply to Star Citizen. There'll likely be a bunch of stuff we can optimize in Squadron 42 that we maybe can't optimize in Star Citizen because it's a single player title. So yeah, we're thinking about it. We're getting optimizations in already that will benefit it. So yeah, it's in our minds, and we've got guys upstairs all working on it now. So when the performance gets when the performance gets not so good in certain areas up there, we know about it down here on the PU floor, and we're there trying to sort of work with them and help improve things.
All right. What are the current and forecasted blockers to be able to spawn capital ships like the Javelin or the Idris in the PU? What needs to be added, either feature or performance-wise, for this to become feasible?
I think, I'm not too familiar. I think feature-wise, there's issues with the sheer size of the ships, and there aren't landing pads big enough for them. So there's some docking collars or docking technology that's required. Performance-wise, we've had Idrises in. We demoed at I believe it was Gamescom last year. So the technology, performance technology is there. It just needs improving. I don't think it's a million miles away. On the network side of things, I think we're probably okay, because we don't really treat these big ships any differently than we do a player or anything else. It's all the same. It's all just entities to us. I don't think there's any big blockers on gameplay side.
No, I mean for us sort of game code wise, it's really just a push towards object container streaming. Also the ability to stream ships on the background threads, which should come in as part of the object container streaming work. That'll eliminate the stalls that you see when you spawn a few ships at a time. We're aware of those issues. QA here, tell us about those issues. As engineers, we just have to go, it's going to be fixed. 3-3. So yeah, I mean, obviously from a gameplay perspective, the bigger the ship, the bigger the stall when it loads in, because there's more entities that make up the ship. So whilst it's maybe not a blocker, like in the sense of we can spawn big ships at the moment to get them to a point where it's good enough to get them actually in the game for the releases. We just need to get that sort of spawning on the background thread. Got a few more of these optimizations in. We're just building up to it. I mean, we've already got ships in the game like the Starfarer, which is pretty massive. And
the Reclaimer in 3.1.
Yeah. So we're going pretty big already, but yeah, the Idris is pretty massive. So.
We'll get there. Well, Clive and Rob, you did it. You survived. You've done your hour. See? Told you.
Fantastic.
3 years and I haven't lost a dev yet. Before we let you go, is there anything you want to say to the community? It's not Netcode. Anything at all you want to say to the community before we let you
go? No, you just said it for me, John. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's just we're just having a great time making this game. Really appreciate all the support we get. Just seeing a bunch of the backers today doing tour. It's it's a real pleasure to be involved in the project, and just hope you enjoy the work, and hope we get it a bit faster for you next time.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to take a short break. We're going to watch the second half of that awesome Black Cutlass video, and then we'll be right back with our wrap-up. Stay tuned.